The night is silent in the flat Florida Keys. Thick humidity hangs in the air. Moonlight glints off towering sculptures of stone. There's an otherworldly feel here, as if the strange place wasn't built by human hands at all. A lone gate 9 feet tall and 9 tons in weight hangs there, almost magically balanced, pushed by nothing but a whisper of a breeze. In the quiet darkness, one could almost believe that the stones were haunted, or that a giant walked these grounds long ago. But nothing is alive here except memory. You step closer, every statue, every chair, every table is carved from solid coral rock, and it seems to watch you. Who could have moved these mountain-sized blocks alone? The gates echo faintly when you touch them, as if testing your strength. The gate swings open with the gentlest push, just as the legend says. But how could this be? A single man working in secret decades ago is said to have built this all by himself. You shouldn't be here, but I'm glad that you are, because there was once a man whose heartbreak was so deep that he built this place as a shrine. This is his castle of stone, built from love and mystery, and tonight we'll unravel how it came to be. Our story begins far from Florida, in a sleepy Latinian village. Imagine a young man in a 1910s rural town. His name was Edward Leedskalnin, and at 26, Edward was no giant. He was small and frail, but he had a heart as vast as any king. He fell deeply in love with a girl 9 years his junior, 16 years old. To him, she was sweet 16, a very symbol of youth. They planned to marry under the golden Latvian sun, but fate intervened. The night before the wedding, something changed. She got cold feet. She was just 16, and he was 30. According to local legend, she told him simply, "You're just too old for me." One day, a young couple in love. The next, Edward was alone. At the altar of a small village chapel, Edward's dream of marriage was shattered. Heartbroken, devastated, he left the village that night. He never looked back. We can imagine Edward's sorrow, a young man feeling the ground beneath him crumble. In the years that followed, he would wander. He boarded a ship to America as though running from his pain. In New York City, at dawn, he stepped off the boat with nothing but a few dollars and this heartbreak in his chest. Maybe he thought he could bury his sadness in a new life abroad. For several years, Edwin drifted across North America. He washed ashore on the Pacific Northwest lodging boom, chopping wood and making axe handles. But the shadow of his lost love followed him. And in that era, warm southern climates promised health to those who needed it. So he moved south, and by 1922, Edward was very sick. Some say that he nearly died of tuberculosis in the cold north. A kind couple in Florida City nursed him back to health under the warm sun. As his body healed, something in Edward changed too. In Florida City, then called Detroit, a small settlement just north of the Everglades, he bought an acre of land for almost nothing. The locals whispered of this strange little man who believed magnets cured disease. He was determined to stay healthy under this sun, but also to build something extraordinary. Here on that quiet Florida city plot, Edward began what he would call the most important project of his life. He said that it was a monument to his lost love, the girl who left him at the altar. It was as if every piece of coral rock he carved was meant to speak to her. And by the early 1920s, Edward was carving the land. Just under the thin topsoil lay deep beds of limestone, a coral-like rock that hardens into stone. And day by day, night by night, under the flat tropical sky, Edward quarried out huge blocks of this coral rock, and by moonlight he shaped them. By candlelight, he chiseled chairs, tables, slabs, and arches. I want you to picture this scene. Out of that lonely clearing, Edward worked alone. He built a small wooden shack for himself at first. He must have hauled rough blocks up with ropes and pulleys and then spent painstaking hours smoothing them. Some stories say that he lit a single lantern and worked quietly at night so that no one could see. Children who passed by said that they sometimes glimpsed flickering lights in the darkness, hammering and echoing through the mangroves. The next morning, heavy coral stones had vanished from the one spot, and they had reappeared in another. Neighbors were absolutely puzzled. What was he doing with those weird chairs and towers emerging out of nothing? In his own odd way, Edward answered simple questions with weary humor. He called his new place Ed's Place, and he charged anyone who visited 10 cents to see it. 10 cents towards Sweet 16. Though he mostly muttered to himself, he told some curious tourists that the sculptures were for her. He hoped that someday his Sweet 16 would visit and use these stone gifts that he made just for her. He carved stone beds and toilets, a bathtub, a fountain, statues of moons and stars, and in one room was a massive heart-shaped table, so two people could sit across from each other, a romantic heart dedicated to his lost love. And in the throne room, he built two huge rocking chairs side by side, one for him and one for Sweet 16. He even left room for a little child's chair and a mother-in-law chair, joking that one was never needed since he had no mother-in-law, but he kept it anyways. It's astonishing. Everything here is carved from solid stone. The floor is limestone. The walls and the furniture are limestone. There is no mortar. The pieces simply hold each other by weight and cunning fit. A 6-inch gap in a wall tells us one way. He filled cracks with smaller stones so passers-by could peek in to see him working. He wanted privacy to keep it all secret. Meanwhile, Edward's diet was odd too. He lived frugally on crackers and sardines, and he had no family around. Sometimes local tales say that he kept a pistol tucked into his belt at night to scare off anyone who dared spy on his labor. He even salted the ground outside to detect footsteps in the morning. As far as one story goes, he needed absolute solitude to perform his strange rites of construction. What tools did he use for this immense labor? Well, like any mason, he had chisels, hammers, and drills. He scavenged old car parts for pulleys and winches. He constructed tripods from cypress logs using block and tackle systems of wheels and rope, and he hauled tons of rock. We know that he could lift more than 10 tons at a time with a wooden tripod rig. He was only 5 feet tall, barely 100 pounds, yet he moved mountains. Even with these tools, Ed once said the secret was leverage and weight, not magic. He claimed that he understood the laws of gravity, weight, and balance, and he famously told of curious folks that it's not difficult if you know how. But when pressed, he only offered riddles. I know the secrets of the people who built the pyramids. Over and over, he hinted that ancient knowledge guided his hands. Now, in truth, he never told anyone exactly how he did it. Every time someone asked, Ed would just smile, and he would say that it was just easy once you saw it done. As the years ticked on, Edward's creation grew. His heart was pouring into this place, and by the early 1930s, he had built low walls to enclose his sculptures, forming a courtyard. He had made a bedroom of stone furniture. He even built a moon-shaped gate and gave it a latch, a giant coral pin that one could pull with a rope on moon phases. For himself, he carved a rock beneath the stars to tell time. He carved a sundial from stone that he could align with sunlight. But by 1935, the little village around him was changing. Miami was growing, and Florida City was soon to become suburbs. Edward liked living in solitude, and he was known as the odd man by the locals, rarely seen in daylight and giving cult answers, if at all. By the mid-1930s, he feared development would drive people to his door day and night, and he wanted to remain alone with the stones. So Edward did something almost as unbelievable as the castle itself. He picked it up and he moved it. Now, I want you to imagine packing up a monument. In 1936, Edward decided to move his entire castle piece by piece. He bought 10 acres of farmland 10 miles north, outside of Homestead, which was still just fields and swamps back then. How do you move a stone house? Well, Ed did it in the only way that he knew, with ingenuity. He acquired a big flatbed trailer from a farmer friend, using a tractor and sometimes hiring a local driver to tow loads. One by one, each carved slab and statue was loaded into trucks. Neighbors tell stories. One night, Ed loaded tons of coral into the back of a pickup in silence, and he told the foreman to turn his head. And by the time that the foreman looked again, the truck bed was full with no visible help. Whether legend or not, it paints the eerie truth. The next morning, the rocks were gone. By day, Edward lived in a small 2-story tower that he built on the new site. It had no running water or electricity, but it had all that he needed. The lower floor was a workshop full of tools and experiments. He was fascinated by physics and astronomy. We'll see how later on. For water, he carved a stone well into the courtyard. Spiral steps in the coral led down to the water table. A hand-dug well on his property. Even this well was an engineering feat. He built stairs into solid rock so that he could draw water from underground streams, perhaps even using it to check the Earth's hidden forces. By the time he was finished moving, Edward's coral castle was bigger and grander than before. More walls, more sculptures, and more mysteries. He built a 9-foot-tall swirling gate that now faced the highway. He also built fortress-like walls, each stone carefully balanced. One section had a 2-story stone tower where he lived on the tiny top floor. The upper room had a thick stone roof, giving him some privacy from the relentless sun below. The lower floor was a workshop of raw creativity. Piles of tools, a crude crane here and there, old pulley wheels from automobiles, homemade jacks, and the beginning of modern construction equipment, all cobbled together. Across the grounds, every corner held something surreal. A stone table 13 feet long and weighing 13 tons, with chairs carved to the exact shape of Florida itself, sprawled in just 1 yard. If one sat there, he was literally looking at a stone Florida beneath him. Nearby, a giant sundial of cut stone still awaited the sun's light each day. A clock told by the sky. There was a strange fountain shaped like a crescent moon. A marble through that seemed to defy what water was supposed to do. In one quiet garden, 3 carved bears sat guarding a small stone hammock, Ed's play area for children, and always throughout that motif of threes. 3 planets carved in one place, 3 moons in another, 3 chairs for lovers, as if Ed's love was more than human, something cosmic, beyond logic. Now, in the center of the compound, he placed his masterpiece, a 5-ton rocking chair carved out of stone, sat facing east. This was Ed's throne, and then next to it, a similar rocking chair for his Sweet 16. On the back wall, carved a 3rd, smaller chair, labeled in some tales as the mother-in-law chair. He laughed to imagine one day a mother-in-law would have to sit in that stone after making life difficult, and each of these chairs could rock back and forth. Even a child could push the big stone chair, and it would move with ease. Rocks that heavy shouldn't rock. Here they did. Another oddity, on the highest point of the site, Ed built what looked like a stone obelisk aimed at the sky, a pointer at the North Star. It was actually a 30-foot stone telescope, 4 carved segments that could align to let you peer at the heavens. He was fascinated by astronomy. Maybe he felt that the stars held secrets for his lost love, or for his own survival. And by 1951, the work on Coral Castle was done. Ed had been building for almost 30 years, night after night, all alone. He finished his labor of love just a month before he died. In late 1951, he fell ill. The stoic man who never trusted doctors finally put up a sign on the front gate, "Go into the hospital." He caught a bus up US 1, suitcase in hand, and disappeared into Miami. 4 weeks later, Edward Leedskalnin was gone. He had spent a lifetime building impossible things, only to perish quietly in a Miami hospital of kidney failure and stomach cancer, alone as he came. So what's the secret? How did Edward do it? Well, let's gather what we know. Our evidence comes from after the fact. Some old pictures, oral accounts, and the tools that he left behind. We know that he had a telephone pole-like log that he used as a pry bar. One local story recalls a man who saw Ed pry a giant rock out of a ditch with just a wooden beam, a bit of a raw muscle and lever. Well, we know that he salvaged bits from junkyards, pluck old car wheels and axles to make pulleys and winches, and blocks of timber on the ground suggest that he built wooden frames. He had ropes and cables, and in one photo, visitors share large tripods of pine stand poised over freshly cut blocks. The physics here are straightforward. Heavy stones can be lifted by levers and pulleys if the setup is strong enough. The wonder is that Ed, just a one-man show, lifted stones that weighed up to 30 tons. One towering column stands 23 feet high, a stone bed weighs 25 tons, and it's not clear exactly how he balanced such weight. The coral he carved is actually porous, lighter than granite, but still nothing a strong man could push solo. We do know one engineering fact: his giant gate. For decades, people marveled at how that 9-ton stone door spun so easily on just the push of a finger. And in 1986, after the gate finally rusted in place, they took it apart. Inside, they found a marvel of precision. Ed had drilled a perfect hole right through the thick stone from top to bottom, and in that hole was an iron shaft, and at its base sat an old truck bearing. That's right, a literal bearing from an automobile holding up a whole gate. It was so precisely balanced that a breeze could swing the gate open. All of those years, the secret was mechanical balance, not magic. The bearing just eventually rusted through and seized up. So with pulleys, winches, levers, and plans, Edward engineered these pieces. He even had help hauling the pieces. A friend named Bob Biggers lent his heavy-duty tractor trailer, and Ed would stack the stones on Bob's trailer and then order Bob to just go on now, sending him off before the crane work began. Alone, Ed would then lift each piece off the trailer, and he set it up in place. It took about 2 years to relocate everything from Florida City to Homestead, and in one affidavit, a witness said he moved all the rocks alone, every block, every slab. And after moving, he even kept building more. He built higher walls, 8 feet tall, and another tower. Every sculpture, a rocking chair, a table, a gate, he erected piece by piece. He used wood and rope and physics. One of his friends, a builder named Orville Irwin, later co-authored a book called Mr. Cant is Dead, explaining exactly how Ed could do it, down to the schematics and all. Irwin's message was clear: no aliens, no anti-gravity, just a genius with levers. Today, engineers and mechanics still study Leedskalnin site, and modern surveys confirm that nothing here breaks the laws of physics. Every stone was moved with conventional gear, but the precision staggers. The craftsmanship inside is immaculate. Rock chairs shaped just right, and the table shaped like Florida, the perfectly horizontal bearing inside of the gate. A child can rock a 5-ton chair easily because Ed shaved and balanced the shape just so precisely. But here's where it stays even more mind-blowing. Even if we know how, we have to ask, why hasn't more of it been replicated? A construction crew today with cranes and power tools could recreate coral structure in months. But Ed did it alone. Remember, he said, it's not difficult if you just know how. Did he know a secret step that no one else does? The tools he used were basic, but in his skilled hands, they did extraordinary work. Each time we think that we've explained one trick, more questions pop up. We have answers for the gate, but how did he precisely drill that perfect hole through a 9-ton slab? How did a frail man manage a 13-ton table without a crane? He had block and tackle, yes, but the height and the angles are incredible. Witnesses recalled that he could pry a slab and something would just lift off, as if weightless. Children on tours told wild tales that blocks moved like hydrogen balloons, just floating. And then the human questions. This hermit obsessed with lost love, building a king's ransom of stone. How did love fuel him? Why did his lady never come? She was invited many times to see her castle, only to ignore the offer. After a life devoted to her, when he was ready to welcome her, she never even arrived. The castle remains as endearing as her absence. By now, you're probably asking, well, how did he do this? Why haven't others done it? And every visitor whispers the same thing. Every engineer ponders it as well. Even his tools now on display at the site couldn't move these stones by themselves, but he moved them. And here's the truth. If we knew all of his secrets, the myth would fade, and it's still alluring. For decades, people have filled that gap in knowledge with something else. Officially, Ed leaned on levers and alone, but maybe, just maybe, he tapped into something beyond the hardware. It's time to dip into those whispers, the theories that turn heads and make you lean into conspiracy. All right, let's have a candid chat, just you and me. The cops have left, and the night is ours. And I'm about to say some things that officials on tours aren't going to tell you. Do you remember those wild stories, those ghosts in Florida? Well, in Coral Castle's case, folks have imagined everything. Psychic powers, singing to stones, aliens from Atlantis, even tuned crystals. Some people believe that Ed learned reverse magnetism. That's right. Not just normal magnets, but some magical harnessing of Earth's magnets. Ed himself was fascinated with magnets. He was convinced that tiny magnets swirled inside of every single object. He once wrote a theory that if made by a battery with copper and beef, you'd get more magnets than with sweet potato. It sounds kooky mumbo-jumbo, but let that just slide for a moment. If he really thought that way, could he have actually made a giant electromagnet out of stone? One modern guess says maybe. Ed built hidden coils or batteries under the yard, pulsing magnetic fields to lift stone, and in one legend he had a pyramid on the site for a while, a stone heap where he lay to cure his illness, aligning it with celestial forces. No proof, these are just rumors. But what if, for just a moment, he discovered how to cause a field around Earth rock to make it lighter? We can't prove it, but imagine humming mountains of coral into the air, like Obi-Wan Jedi mind tricks. Well, that's the stuff that you only whisper about at midnight. Then there's the idea of harmonics or frequencies. This is the one where people grin and they just call it science fiction, but here's the theory. You find the exact vibrational frequency of a coral block. You might shake it so that it moves as if it's weightless. It's like the old story of tuning forks. Now, Ed was known to carve a giant 30-foot stone telescope aimed at Polaris, and he clearly studied astronomy. Some say that he discovered a musical key to the cosmos. The math fans mentioned resonant frequencies. Maybe Ed struck each rock at the perfect pitch before lifting it with a pulley, making it almost levitate. Now, it sounds crazy, but nature does have resonant quirks. Fun fact, stone has resonance, but no human has ever actually floated a giant rock with sound, much less Ed. But nevertheless, talk of cosmic tones keeps popping up. One of my favorites is energy lines and ley lines. All right, here's how the story goes. There are these mythical lines of energy said to crisscross the earth. Think of them as magnetic highways. Some folks claim Florida lies at the weird convergence point, like a ley line junction or something akin to the Bermuda Triangle energy. A New Age pilot once plotted a grid of what he called Earth's energy grid lines, and Coral Castle just so happens to sit on one of those lines. He says supposedly at certain spots on the globe, the force of gravity can be tinkered with by geometry. Put simply, if Ed found such a hot spot, his job of moving rocks would get easier. Maybe he chose that Florida farmland precisely because of its power coordinates. Wild idea, but all sorts of odd ruins and monuments around the world get the same treatment. I mean, Stonehenge was once claimed to be an ancient radio, right? And don't forget the secrets of the pyramids, what Ed himself invoked. Some theorists leap to imagine that he stole knowledge from the pharaohs. The Great Pyramid was allegedly built with advanced pulleys or even anti-gravity tech. Could Ed have copied an Egyptian trick? Did he travel to study the pyramids? In fact, he never did, but he talked about the pyramids like a magician letting slip a card. Even today, cynics claim that Ed was just building by common sense, but one can't shake that little doubt. What did he really mean by the secrets of the pyramids? Let's consider something ancient. Lost civilizations. Atlantis fans would love this one. They might say that maybe Ed knew something from the Atlanteans or Lemurians. Yes, that's right, some folks connect it to the lost continents. And of course, the most shocking theory of all, aliens. No, I'm not joking. Every weird monument summons UFO talk, so come with me. Does the Coral Castle precise engineering hint at visitors from space? Well, there are people who find coincidences. Look, the stones have star-like shapes. But honestly, the tales of little green men are probably more fertilizer than fact. If Ed met extraterrestrials, he sure kept that one secret. Another favorite, a magnetic current device or a perpetual motion machine. Edward had a pamphlet called Magnetic Current, and some say that he actually built a device which he called a perpetual motion holder. Now, what the heck is that? We don't really know, but perhaps he was working on a machine to harness energy, maybe for fun, or maybe to move rocks. The legend goes that he tinkered with electromagnetic coils on site, and if he did, it might have looked like any other tool heap to the casual eye. Some claim that he charged a big coil under the moon and whispered incantations into the stone. Now, we're in conspiracy mode, remember, so just indulge me with this one. Even his diet and health fed the lore. He ate only crackers and sardines. How did he stay so trim and energetic? Maybe he was receiving cosmic rays of energy too. Okay, maybe just saltwater fish and high-effort lifestyles. But when he had a lung condition, he vowed that the pyramid structure cured him. Combined that with sun exposure, and some New Agers say that he aligned crystals in that pyramid to heal via Earth's energies. Now, I'm not saying I believe these things. No suit and tie physicist would let a word of it in a journal. But as your local midnight narrator here, I admit we've all played along with the magic ideas because they're fun. Imagine standing on that quiet coral compound at dusk with me passing a tin cup of coffee, shooting the breeze about Ed's castle and the wild ramblings of the universe. Look, at the end of the day, there's no smoking gun providing ghosts or aliens. And the fact is that after Ed died, crews with cranes could lift anything that they wanted there and would tell you that it's all simple physics. But even knowing that, there are these moments standing in that stone bedroom or sitting in one of those heavy chairs, hearing the night wind, where you just feel like someone else might have left clues. Some say that if you lie in the rocking chair at midnight and you gaze at the North Star through that stone telescope, that you'll get a tingle. Maybe it's just bug spray, but what really gets me is how, even with all of the block and tackle explanations, we still ask, how did one man in secret do everything so precisely? We know about the cables, we know about the lens shaping, yet in every direction we look, there's just another missing detail. The disbelievers say it was just ingenuity, period. And the dreamers among us say, sure, and if you only knew how to whisper to the stones, you could figure it out. Are any of those theories true? Well, I can't say. Ed himself would have just winked and replied, it's simple if you know how. Maybe someday someone will take his pamphlets and all of his tools and this science and stitch them together for a complete answer. But maybe that's the point. The answer might lie in what we believe, science or mysticism. In the end, what does Coral Castle mean to us? Here's a man who was nearly invisible in life, an immigrant stonecutter from Latvia, and because of love and sheer determination, he became a legend. His quiet testament of stone still lives on. Today, tourists wander through it, gawking at the hanging stone spirals and grates and asking tour guides to explain the inexplainable. They snap pictures in the throne room, or they turn the big gate, now with its new bearing, and they laugh that a finger can swing it. Each visitor takes away a story. Was it love? Was it genius? Was it magic? Scholars, too, come with laser scanners and laptops meticulously mapping every single surface. Some will model the structures, confirming that, yes, the physics add up. Others, well, they remain silent, thinking, what did we really just see? Over the years, architects have tried to mimic Coral Castle. Tiny stone projects pop up here and there, but none capture the feeling. None have that perfect gate. Others attempt to reenact Ed's feat at home, only to discover how brutal and precise it must have been. The legacy of Coral Castle is layered. It's a testament to one man's love and sorrow turned into art. It's a puzzle that reminds us, when we don't know everything, that even our modern age, one person will and can confound our assumptions. Engineers marvel at the details. Romantics marvel at the devotion. Dreamers marvel at the mystery. And every year, on the anniversary of the Creator's death, people leave flowers or letters in his throne room, maybe to the Sweet 16 that he carved a chair for, maybe to Ed's spirit himself. The castle sits on a quiet country road now. Suburbia has crept close and a highway traffic rumbles by, yet inside nothing changes. The sun still has a shadow across the carved walls. The coral chair rocks gently, and whatever secrets Ed took to his grave, they remain locked within those limestone beds. Maybe they will never truly be known, and maybe they were never meant to be. As our journey comes to a close, picture this: the Florida sky turning orange at sunset, the last light hitting that stone heart-shaped table. Two chairs sit across from each other. One is empty, and the other is waiting. The stones have a story, but it's for each of us to tell. Coral Castle endures to remind us that sometimes human love builds monuments bigger than any other force. We gaze at it, and we feel the weight of something still beyond our understanding. And there, at the last light, we're left with a question. In a world of explanations, does a little mystery still belong? I leave you with that because I'm a travel advisor, history nerd, and mystery chaser, and I'm here to take you to the places that you didn't even know existed.